And aloha, good morning, everyone, to the COVID Care Conversation. This is a forum on the Honolulu Star Advertiser Facebook page where we invite the readers of the paper and throughout the world to join us to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it is affecting life here in Hawaii. Good morning, I'm Yanji Denise.
And I'm Ryan Kalei Suji. We thank you for your patience. We normally come in at 10 o'clock. We had a little bit of technical issues, but I think we're rolling now. Today, we want to get right off the bat. We are very lucky to have Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell with us. We're going to bring him into the streams. It's a little bit of a different setup, so please pardon me here. And Mayor, can you hear us and see us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, Ryan and Yunji, and thank you so much for doing this for all the readers and viewers of the Honolulu Star Advertiser.
We'd love to hear from all of the readers this morning. If you have a question, this is your chance to ask the mayor anything you'd like to. We want to focus to have our discussion on some productive and practical things. So far, how do you think, Mr. Mayor, how do you think that the shelter-in-place order is going? Are people abiding by the rules as you see it right now?
Yunji, I have to say, overall, I'm really proud of it. Folks in the city and county of Honolulu, the island of Oahu, it seems for the most part, people are really abiding by the stay-at-home, work-at-home order issued both by me and by the governor of the state of Hawaii. We do see examples of the order not being followed, and it was written about in the Star Advertiser, as you know, a gathering out in the west side in Waianae, too many people together in one home. And then, of course, this group at a hostel in Waikiki. People need to really take this seriously. We're at the beginning of the beginning. We see a spike, as you know, we're reporting a number of cases, and it's growing, and we see the same kind of curve we see, whether it be in Wuhan and Hubei province, whether it be in Seattle or New York City or other places, Spain, Italy. We are all human beings. We're not exempt from this virus. And if we don't practice the social distancing requirements in the state and county order, more people are going to get sick faster. We're going to see a ramping up of people going into the ICU units in all of our hospitals, and then they're going to fill up and difficult decisions are going to be made about who lives and who dies. This is absolutely serious. And so we ask folks to really abide by the orders. If you need to get out and exercise, jogging around your neighborhood, walking around your neighborhood, absolutely. But gathering in large groups to have fun, not now. You're going to get sick, or you're going to get other people who love you and you love getting sick. So please, for the most part, people are abiding, but there are examples of those who are disregarding the orders, and that should not occur.
I think one of the questions too that we had come up is that people are a little maybe confused about the exercising aspect of it. We see people running around streets, which we think is okay. But what about in the parks? Ala Moana Beach Park, for example, yesterday, a lot of people still in the park using the outdoor gym. Some people running on the beach. How regulated is the park closures and what people are allowed to do if they're exercising?
Yeah. Right, that's a good question. We keep getting questions about this, and also pressure to open up the parks, the city parks. And what we're sending is a bright line that we do not want people gathering anywhere, whether it be in private or in public settings and in our parks. So the message is do not gather in anywhere, including our parks. So here's the requirement. The parks are closed, but if someone needs to use the bathroom, needs to use the loo, the bathrooms are open. That is for people who drive our bus or FedEx people or other people who are going by a park and need to use the restroom. And also for the homeless who don't have anywhere else to go in, use the restroom and leave the park. If you're a surfer, a swimmer, those kind of things, you can traverse our public park as long as you're heading to the beach and the water. And then you can come out of the water, off the beach, cross the park, and get back into your vehicle. If you need to take a shower, you can take a shower quickly and leave, but you don't want a bunch of people gathered around a shower, not practicing good social distancing. This message has to be really clear. So there were letters to the editor today in the Honolulu Star Advertiser, one guy complaining about only the rich folks have access to the beach now who live along the water and the rest of us don't. And he was a little hoo-hoo with me. And what I'd say to that person is you can still get your paddleboard. I think there's a stand-up paddleboarder, cross the beach park in Kailua and go stand up paddleboard, come back in and leave, cross the beach, cross the park and go, but not to hang out in the park. He may be a person who practices good social distancing, but what we see, and you maybe have seen it in Ala Moana, people go in anyway, sit around a picnic table, all gathered close together, and not practicing good social distancing. It's hard for us to enforce it. So the bright line are parks and gathered, but they are open to traverse, to get to the beach, to get your exercise, to come back out and get in your car and go home. I don't know what that is.
That's my phone, and I can't turn it off. But Ryan, can you ask Brandon's question there about dog walking?
Yeah, there is a question that's coming in from us, a viewer right now. I walk my dog with the other neighbors, and we gather with other walkers, and we are just standing. Is that okay?
I would say, walking your dog on city streets and sidewalks, absolutely part of exercising, and it's a way to relieve pressure and being cooped up at home, particularly if you don't have a yard in your own home, you're living in a high rise. But again, practicing good social distancing, we've seen that even here at the Holiday grounds, people continue to gather and they're not practicing good social distancing, and a lot of them are seniors. So if you're going to come out with your dog and you're going to walk your dog, I would make sure if you're walking with others that you're apart from each other, not bunched together. And you can still talk, but be apart and do not touch each other. Don't shake hands, and be careful. Yes, you can walk out on the streets with your dogs.
The city order right now, and the state order rather, is till April 30th. Do you see that lasting beyond the 30th? What are your hopes for how long we're going to have to live like this?
Unfortunately, I think it's going to go beyond April 30th. I was glad to see the President of the United States is now following the lead of Hawaii and continuing his stay-at-home, work-at-home order advisory until the end of April. I say that partly joking. I think he is looking at the same facts that we're looking at, and we've made that decision, I think, based on having people understand that this is not going to be over by Easter, and understanding that yes, till April, but it's most likely going to go beyond. And what is the trigger? I think we need to look at the next 2 weeks. What kind of spike do we see? If we see a tamping down of this spike, if people are really practicing good social distancing and the number of cases and the spread is getting flattened, then perhaps we could look at some kind of adjustment. But I think we're in it, through the next month or 2 or 3. If you look at China and Wuhan and Hubei province, they're just now starting to unlock. And it started back in December. So you got December, January, February, March. That's 4 months. So I think people need to start looking at this as a longer term type of lockdown that goes beyond the end of April.
Teresa Strange has a question here. How are you enforcing the visitor quarantine order? I hear they are not adhering to all the requirements. How are you doing that? Are you working with the hotels? We certainly don't have enough officers to police every single person who lands in the state.
Right. You're absolutely right. And at the end of the day, Yunji, I think we got to prevent any visitors from coming here. I saw this. Someone just showed me this video of some woman in Boston at the airport in Logan dancing around. She's coming to Hawaii with a very cheap airfare. She's dancing on the floor and by the window, and then it shows her on the plane that's empty. There's only like 8 people on this flight coming to Hawaii to vacation. That should be prohibited. At the end of the day, I think we need to ask our president to prohibit any visitors from coming to Hawaii. They shouldn't be going anywhere else either, but we don't want them in Hawaii right now. They shouldn't. So those who do come, by the way, have to fill out that egg form that we're all familiar with. You got to put down what hotel you're staying at, and you got to provide your phone number, your number here. And the way it works is that information is gathered and then provided to the hotels. So the hotels know who's there, and they need to quarantine in place for 14 days. And if they're not practicing that procedure or for the period of their time here, and they go out of the hotel, the way it would work is the hotel would warn them that you're violating the quarantine order put in place by the governor. And each of the counties, the police departments, each county could be notified that some visitor is not abiding by the order and is leaving their room. If the police get the call, they would have to enforce. Now, we hope that doesn't occur because our police officers are out there, protecting all of us every day. And to have to now worry about some visitor who's not complying and endangering the public is frustrating, to say the least. But they would, if they got the call, they're told this is the visitor, here's their name, they're staying at the Sheraton or whatever hotel, they would go find that person and warn them they return to their room. A lot of times that brings compliance, just having someone in a police uniform showing up. If they didn't, they could be cited. And if they refuse to go back to the room, they could be arrested. Hopefully that won't occur.
One other question that we saw come in, I couldn't find it back on. There's so many questions coming in. A lot of people have a lot of questions. We're going to try to get as many as we can, but we want to be respectful.
And I'm happy to do this more.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right. I'm also happy to do it.
There's
more.
a question about, I saw a question about the golf courses, the city-run golf courses. What is sort of an update on that? Is that still open? Will people still be allowed to use the golf courses here?
So the city golf courses are closed, but we have private golf courses that are open. And I know there's a lot of press on that. The Honolulu Star Advertiser had an article about that, showing people in the golf courses. And of course, the private courses are saying they're requiring social distancing. But again, it goes to the message we're trying to drive home, is that we don't want people coming out of their homes unless it's essential. And yes, exercise is essential. And some people could argue golfing is, but are there other ways? So that is an issue that's not going to go away about people golfing at private courses, but our public courses are closed and not open to the public.
We also have some questions here about construction. I think there's some concern for people that they still see construction sites and buildings going up, and and I think the broader question is, why are certain categories considered essential and others not?
Yeah, Yunji, that's a great question. We tried to actually describe job by job what's essential and not. And as we started going, it would look like the US tax code. We'd have 1,000 pages you'd have to read through. So we did some bright lines that are not perfect. Even in the order to shut down restaurants, bars, and nightclubs, we didn't consider the fact that there are restaurants and cafeterias in our hospitals. And our essential workers, our medical profession, they need, once they get into the hospital and they go through all the protocols, they stay there, they need food. Many of them are working longer hours. And so we made an exception for restaurants and cafeterias and hospitals. So that was something we didn't encounter until it was brought up. And of course, we adjust. So on the issue of construction, part of it is, how do we keep people in jobs during this period of time to the end of April and maybe longer? And how do we look down the road to a recovery? Because we need to look at that. And part of it is, how do we keep construction going so people are working and we shovel ready? You hear this concept of shovel ready projects. How do we make sure that as we climb out of this, there are jobs that people can have? And of course, construction is one of our largest segments of our economy after tourism and the military. It's tourism first, military second, and construction third. Well, military is still here and they're spending money. Tourism is totally gone pretty much. Construction is the other one. And so as long as they're practicing good social distancing. So if you go to construction projects, a lot of times people are not bunched together. They're spread apart, much of the time in the open air. They're not in closed rooms if you're building a high rise. So as long as people are practicing good social distancing, they're not bunched together, many of them are wearing masks anyway, is we allow that to proceed. And I think it's something that's necessary if we're going to climb out of this in a way that is healthier and quicker than otherwise. So we have not locked down the construction industry component.
Over the weekend, we saw two drive-through testings that you folks are partnering with on the private side, and thousands of people showing up again. Is this something that we can continue to expect to see more of, the city partnering to do more of these drive-through testings in the weekends ahead?
I'm absolutely committed to getting more testing. I think it's something we should have done earlier, and we should have done it much more broadly than we have so far. There's disagreement on whether it works or not. But we look at places like South Korea and other countries that have a flattening of the curve. I think testing is a way to get information as to who tests positive and where it is in clusters, because then we can disclose that, and not by the name of an individual, but in areas. And that will, I think, also create even more discipline and greater social distancing. And so we've done it now 2 weeks in a row during the weekend. And if we can do it, I'd like to continue this not only on weekends, but every day in a regulated manner. in a way that happens not just in right now, Kaka'ako twice and once at Waipio Peninsula, a district park. We should have it being done on the island in Waianae, in Haleiwa, in Hauula, in Kailua, Waimanalo, Hawaii Kai. We are looking at how do we do that right now? How can we use our other park facilities? How do we have people being able to not have to travel very far and get tested if they meet the proper protocols? And yes, we're committed to do that. We're looking at how we roll it out in a more broad way, following all the protocols that are required.
I think a lot of people just feel so frustrated and helpless during this time. What is your advice to people who want to be useful, but also make sure that they are sheltering in place? I think, on a personal level, of course, the best thing we can do for each other is stay home. But I do know there are some efforts to help the homeless, for instance. You have the quarantine facility opening on Wednesday. If people actually want to help their neighbors, how can they do that at this time?
Here's a couple of things that I've, you can go next door to your elderly neighbor. Where I live in Manoa, both our home have elderly, is go to them and see how are you doing? And not getting close to them, just knocking on the door and looking through the screen, and then offering to pick up their groceries for them, if they need, so they don't have to go out, they can stay home, is an example of just, first you start with those around your immediate family, of course, and then your neighbors, which is kind of your ohana, and other, like this farm to car program we rolled out. I like the fact that I'm hearing from farm to car for their neighbors too. So they go and pick up bags for themselves and for the neighbors, and they just put it on their door and leave. And so they have fresh produce, and that's a great example. Going out from there, we're hearing that people are having the homeless shelters are having a hard time. They used to have volunteers. There's fewer volunteer at a homeless shelter as long as you're putting on your gloves and doing everything properly. But those who are willing to help out in the homeless shelters is something. The food bank, how do we help the food bank? Now they need money, they need food, and they have volunteers, but perhaps there's a way you could go to the food bank and say, I will come down days and help pass out food or get it distributed properly. They're talking about even putting together groups to show masks. As you know, you have the N95 masks, but if there aren't enough of those, we've heard that a mask of any sort is better than no mask. And so they're talking about hooing up together, getting people to help put together masks, being taught how to do it properly. And, as this goes forward, we'll be announcing that, and you can maybe gather at places like this. Those are some of the things I think we can do. Taking care of our first responders. Is there a way to watch the children of first responders? If you're someone who's home and your neighbor is an officer in the home police department or in the fire department or in EMS, and they need their children to be watched, perhaps you say, I'll watch your child, so you can go out there to save lives. And these are some of the things I think we can do, starting with those. But we're open. In fact, the City and County of Honolulu is open for suggestions and advice. If you call 768 City with some of those, we'll look at them and explore them and see what else we can do.
Well, we want to thank you so much. We know you're busy, and we appreciate you just taking the time to be here and to answer some of these questions. Thank you to all the viewers and the readers as well for your questions. We know you're working 24/7. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Yunji. Thank you for what you're doing. Stay healthy and continue to provide this information that's so important to all your readers and viewers of the Honolulu Star Advertising. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
So interesting, Ryan, when we apologize again to our viewers for the audio quality there. That was the best we could do. But the mayor did say that he is open to coming on again. And we saw that there were a lot of questions there. So we definitely will be having Mayor Kurt Caldwell on again. One of the things I think the big headline from what he said was that he thinks this will continue beyond April 30th. Yeah. So this is definitely a marathon, not a sprint, as we have known throughout this crisis, but to really prepare ourselves to know that April 30th could come and go, and we might still be in a period of extreme social distancing and having to stay at home.
Yeah, and we also got a little more clarification about what is allowed workout-wise. Of course, the mayor saying that the parks they're closed. They do not want people in there. But if people have to get access to the water, you're still allowed to participate in swimming or stand-up paddleboarding. It's really the congregation of people, he's saying. So if you're running at the beach or you're running on there, as long as you're in that exercising state, it's fine. He's just saying he wants to prevent any sort of people hanging out at a picnic table, people maybe playing games down at the beach or in the parks. They want to allow people to exercise, but they also don't want people taking advantage of sort of the ruling that they set in place. So just sort of emphasizing what he said there as well. We have a lot of questions we know that we weren't able to get to, but as Yanji said, we will try to get the mayor back or someone from the city who can maybe answer some of these questions as well, because we know that there were so many that came in.
To that end, we want to pop up Finley Joanne's question. What about the people that were already unemployed when this happened and just exhausted the maximum amount of unemployment? Is there anything for them, or are they just future homeless statistics? Well, we will have a guest on tomorrow who can hopefully dive into that question and the other questions that I saw in the feed about unemployment.
Yeah, that's right. Scott Murakami, who is the director of the state for labor and industrial relations, he will actually be on our show tomorrow. And we were going to be talking to him specifically about unemployment benefits, about the CARES Act that was passed, the $2 trillion package that President Trump signed into law, some of the ways that it can directly impact small businesses, as well as potentially help those who can get and qualify for those cash payment that the government will be sending directly. So we look forward to having him on. So send your questions about unemployment. We know that there were some questions about the website that came in and some people asking about it crashing on them. We hope to get some answers about that tomorrow. But again, one of the other headlines we talked to the mayor about, looking to potentially have more drive-through sites. We saw a lot of people actually lining up again this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. We had over 1,000 people showing up in Kaka'ako Waterfront Park on Sunday. That's a picture right there of that testing. 301 of those 1,000 were tested. In Waipio Gentry, there were 1,200 who showed up, 260 folks tested there. The reason for the difference in those numbers is that just because you show up doesn't mean you get a test. You have to be screened. You have to meet either certain physical criteria, coughing, fever, sore throat, those kinds of, they make sure that you have the symptoms, or if you have a travel history or may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19, then you did get a test. The trouble with this test, of course, is that it takes 3 to 5 days because they have to send it to the mainland and then it has to come back. So, a lot of experts are saying while we're seeing 100, I believe the count now, it's 175 positive cases here in Hawaii. We could have far more than that because these tests do have that delay. We don't have the instant tests just yet.
Yeah, so we're gonna, and as the mayor said, he not only wants to continue to do this every weekend, but potentially trying moving into a state where they can do this every day and trying to find ways where they can do that. Again, a lot will be dependent on those testing and what they're able to get in. Again, a lot of these testings are going off to the mainland, so they do take some time. We heard some reports of people in different hospitals as well taking a test and waiting up to 7 to 10 days for the results because they're waiting for that results to come back. So that's why it's so important for anyone that takes these tests to go into that 14-day quarantine, regardless of if you're positive or not, because the testing results sometimes are taking so long that they rather err on the side of just being safe and requiring those people who take the test, that qualify to take the test, to also go into that 14-day self-quarantine period.
Of course, we want to bring you the news here, but we also want to highlight good things that are happening. You heard the mayor there talking about potential sewings of masks and different things that people can do. We want to highlight our hero of the day, and today that is the Bank of Hawaii. They announced that they'll be donating more than 1,200 face shields and masks, as well as making a $100,000 contribution to the Healthcare Association of Hawaii, rather. So that's more than 1,000 new N95 masks, nearly 200 face shields donated to Hawaii Pacific Health and the Queen's Health System that will then distribute that through their staff. So that's wonderful news there, and we really mahalo the Bank of Hawaii for stepping up and making those resources available.
Yeah, so critical at this point in time, and we know that Peter Ho from Bank of Hawaii really engaged in this conversation as well, a part of the task force and the recovery efforts. So thank you to Bank of Hawaii for their efforts in helping to provide for the community during this time. We're seeing a lot of these companies do that as well, really helping to step up to support the community during this time.
The other thing is that Senator Schatz, we want to direct you to his website. He has a resource guide for small businesses here in Hawaii to help them navigate through that $2 trillion bill. We can throw that website right up there, shots.senate.gov/coronavirus/small businesses. That's a really important resource as you start out on that journey of trying to figure out if I'm a small business owner or if I'm a gig economy worker, if I'm an Uber driver or work in freelance work. You're a 1099 worker, if you will. Head to that website. The senator's website will then show you how you can try to navigate that bill because there is quite a bit there to get through.
And there's still a lot of questions. I think that that's one of the things that in reading of what's happening today, especially with the bill getting signed into law, a lot of it is now the implementation. And because it's such a wide breadth of so many services that they're providing and specific services, there's a lot of questions on the ground. And so I think they are still working through that. We know that it's not perfect at this point in time, but hopefully in a few days, once some of these things get fleshed out through the IRS, through the Department of Taxation, through the Department of Labor, all of this, the bill basically starts off here with the president, and then it trickles down to all of these departments, and these departments have protocol for each of these measures. So it may take some time. The best thing that we can advise is just to apply and get into the system now. They can handle some of the nuances and some of the questions that what be implemented later. They're encouraging people to go through that process and apply, get all the material you need, because it could take a little bit. They're going to ask for a lot of information, and sometimes it takes a while to kind of get that information out of your record. So be patient, but they're saying apply because it's a pretty lengthy process.
As the mayor said, the city does have a hotline for questions about the stay-at-home order, 768-CITY, 768-CITY, or go to oneoahu.org. We're going to put all of these resources in the description of the show afterwards. So I'll add that back. Check back in about a half an hour, and all the links will be there. Aloha United Way 211 has trained operators from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day to answer all COVID-19 questions. And, we know that 65,000 students across the state do receive the subsidized meals from the DOE. Those meals are starting to become available. Go to hawaiipublicschools.org, find a school in your neighborhood so that your student can eat a hot breakfast and a hot lunch. You can get those meals to go.
Yeah, we heard the mayor also talk about ways that you can get involved. Maybe you're watching at home and you say, I want to do something. I have something that I can provide. The mayor is saying, of course, start with who's around you, maybe a kupuna that lives nearby. Try to see if you can assist them. But there are a number of opportunities that you can help, that you can stay. Of course, we want to just say, number one, everybody just stay home. Really, we just want to help to prevent anything from spreading. So number one thing you can do to help, stay at home. Another thing, a resource that we have made available is the coronavirushawaii.com website, where you can actually volunteer. We are taking names and facilitating those needs and requests for services and goods to those departments. So everything is on the How You Can Help tab of the coronavirushawaii.com website, where you can actually register your business, but as well, you can also register to help out an organization in need right now.
Okay, so we have a very important topic tomorrow, and that is unemployment. It might be your first time filing, or you might have done this before, but perhaps not in this circumstance. The website, as we know, has been overloaded. The office itself is closed. So how do you navigate this? We're going to help you with that tomorrow. Very special guest. So make sure to tune in right here at 10.
Yeah, that's right. So submit your questions today. We'll go back and look at it again for Scott Murakami, who will be here tomorrow. And we can try to get to as many questions as we can right off the top if you guys send in your questions and type them in actually in this show, so that we'll have them ready to go for tomorrow. So thanks again to the mayor. And we also want to especially thank our sponsor and partner in this effort, the Hawaii Executive Collaborative, who have helped us bring you this conversation and stir this community care conversation. Hawaii Executive Collaborative is a collective of Hawaii business and civic leaders committed to making the islands a better place, and we want to thank them for their help in engaging all of us in this conversation.
Yes, so we thank them and we thank you. Do us a favor, like this, share it with your network, make sure that everyone hears the mayor's message, and we will see you right back here tomorrow, 10 o'clock on the Honolulu Star Advertiser's Facebook page.
Aloha.